good evening, and welcome to WKIM. We are just grateful to be here, and this is a long show. We're going to be here for 3 hours, and we're just so tickled. We have with us today Dr. Michael Gary, who is the Chief Information Officer with Concentric Solutions. It's an educational program, and publicist who is Regan, who is Ray the publicist, who has been doing incredible work for a long time, and we're just so proud of her. Of course, our producer, Katanya Lester, is here with us trying to keep me on path, and it's real difficult because this whole holiday weekend has been just chock full. We have a 7 p.m. to 8 show, and then we have a 8 to 9, and then we have a 9 to 10. We're going to fill all that in with information, but we've started just a little bit late, and we'd like to keep it moving. So let's bring on our guests. I'd like to introduce you all to Regan, the publicist. Hello, Regan.
Hello, Miss Marsha. It's always a pleasure to see you, hear you, talk to you, and all of that good things. I'm super excited to be on the show.
Well, I'm super excited to have you on the show. And so let's talk about we met a long time ago where you were part of a different organization and you took all those skills and now you are traveling. Every time I look around, you are on somebody's plane going somewhere, telling
Yes,
somebody what to do.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I try my best, and I hope that they don't get too mad at me. So later you'll hear from Dr. Gary, and I hope he's not too mad at me because literally just a second ago I told him what to do.
Right.
Ask
Right. But we already know that because that's what you do. You tell people what to do, and you have to tell people what to do because that's how you run your business.
Yes,
People talk about PR, public relations. What does that really mean? And
yes,
I'm so glad that you're here because I highly respect you and your ability.
same.
And I'd like for you to really talk about people are making major investments into this business line, right? And they're hiring people, but they don't know the right people to hire. They
Mhm,
don't know what they really need them to do. They don't even know what they're supposed to do, right?
mhm.
So
Yep.
can we just kind of start from why you even decided to go in there and to go in this line of business? How did that happen? Is this
Yeah.
something that you wanted to do as a little girl or
Even as a youngin, I knew that this is something that I wanted to do. I'm Baltimore born and raised. I went to Pikesville High School in Baltimore, Maryland. And long and the short, I just knew that publicity is something that I wanted to do, namely because it was the person that was behind the scenes pulling the strings. I knew that I never wanted to be on camera talent. I feel like I'm not as colorful and flowery for those sort of things. However, I knew that execution was important to me and telling stories. And most importantly, Miss Marsha, telling Black stories was extremely important to me. And when we talk about what PR is getting a space for what we consider earned media visibility. So that is helping your business, helping your brand get on radio, get on television, get on what we now consider new media. So that could be any IG live conversations, anything that amplifies your brand. That's what public relations is. So marketing is saying, try this product. PR is saying this is why this product is important. And I think people confuse the two sometimes, or they couple everything together, is because they are not sure what PR actually is. But if you want to tell your story, if you want to tell your why, then PR is definitely for you. Bill Gates has this quote that says, if I was down to my last dollar, I'd spend it on PR. And we know that Bill Gates has billions of dollars. However, he knows the value of storytelling and telling your story. So that's what PR is. And that's kind of what I do. I help people get on radio, television, newspapers, and different things of that nature.
That's very interesting. Telling your story. I
Mhm.
don't know how to tell my story. Am I supposed to go back 19,000 years ago and before the gray hair and talk, and talk about, what what are the things that the press wants to see? What do
Mhm.
they want to hear?
Mhm.
what are 2 or 3 things that need to be included? Well, first of all, they should call you,
Mhm.
but then after that, the discussion is going to be about how they develop that strategy. And what's a strategy for public relations?
Yeah, and I think that strategy starts with knowing your audience, right? So if I am let's take for instance, I am a shoe brand. Maybe I'm a shoe brand that only caters to women between the ages of 13 to 35. Now, granted, everyone can wear shoes. However, you do want to know who you're marketing to. And sometimes everyone isn't your targeted audience. So if I know that if I'm sending a client to Miss Marsha, I know that she cares about the impact work. I know that she cares about the community engagement work. So when I'm telling my story, maybe I'm not telling, hey, this artist dropped a hot new single, or if I am, I'm coupling that with this artist also does community impact work, and
Mhm.
he or she cares about Baltimore City, and he donated 1,000 book bags to BCPS. So I'm giving it more than just one story, but I'm making this story make an impact.
And so as a client, right?
Hmm.
What should the clients be doing in preparation to work with you?
Hmm.
What is their body of work? How do you tell, what can you say about my story? What do I need to have in place for you to work for me? Do
Yeah.
I what do I need to do? Oh, my name is Marsha and I've just done it. Here's my bio. And that should be enough.
Yeah.
That's not enough. That's
That's
not
not
enough.
enough.
No,
That's
no.
not enough. I think along, but that is a good start, right? Bios, headshots, your own personal brand website. What does that look like? Maybe you have a product coming out. Maybe you have a phenomenal show like Miss Marsha Juice, where now we have content that we can publicize. And I think that's what's going to be important. Have you started on what you're trying to publicize? It can't just be an idea, because that's not helpful. It needs to already be from the ideation phase into the execution phase. And now we have a product that we can, a product or a good or service that we can now publicize.
What's the ideation stage? What does that mean? Don't nobody know what ideation stage. What?
Yeah, so that is the idea stage. So when we talk about early on in your business, if it's just on paper, and if it's only written down, that may not be the best time that you hire a publicist. But once this product, this good or this service is now taking shape, and maybe you're ready to start selling it, that's when you want to hire a publicist. You also want to hire someone when you feel like you have already done a bit of the work yourself, when you're clear on your why you got started, who
Mhm.
you want to impact, who your target audience is. Remember, we talked about that. And one of the things where I always try to make clients expand upon what they're doing is I say, take your ideal audience member. For me, hypothetically, even based on what I see on my personal social media, my audience is between 18 to 35. Let's give her a name. Her name is Ashley, hypothetically. She's
Mhm.
based in New York, LA, Atlanta. She's an HBCU graduate. So now when I create my content on social media, or when I create my content, if I want to sell a product or a journal or anything of that nature, I already know who I'm talking to. So really get clear on who you're talking to, and know that your target audience doesn't have to be everyone. It can be a particular person.
I think that's really interesting because I am intergenerational.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that for you.
Yeah. Okay,
Hmm.
because I just made that up.
Multi-generational, intergenerational, no, I think that for you and your brand, Miss Marsha, because you are clear, and you can talk to people from my generation, you can talk to people from another generation, you can talk to the Gen Zers. But I think that is because you've made a brand that's open, right? Like, you
Mm.
made a brand that's not scared to talk to people from different backgrounds, people from different perspectives. However, I think sometimes where people go wrong is, if they're trying to talk to everyone, they don't necessarily know how,
Mhm.
or it's coming across as it's not authentic. And I think for your brand and what you do, it's very authentic because you're coming with compassion, you're leading with authenticity, you're doing those things already, so it doesn't make it hard. But for some folks, when they first start out, they aren't even necessarily sure the best ways to do that, you know?
So if just being oneself, right?
Is very important.
Being oneself and being into in tuned with yourself,
Hmm.
right?
I like to say people buy into who they know, who they like, and who they trust. So
Mm,
if you can create a space to for your audience to get to know you, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to share every single thing on social media or on your platform, right? However, folks want to feel connected to you. If you are not a suited and booted person, you don't have to be that person, because if that's not you, we're going to see that, right? However, if you are, be you, do what you need to do in order to talk to your audience, but find that balance. For
mhm,
me, I'll tie in some of my PR practices or PR thought processes into pop culture, right? So I know we all remember when Will and Jada did that whole entanglement piece. One of the things that I tied into my, I guess, PR strategy was what's good PR, what's bad PR. Let's not get the two entangled, because oftentimes people get good PR and bad PR confused. Some folks will say, oh, well, all press is good press. I don't believe that as a publicist, right? But we get that entangled so often. So me taking that pop culture reference and breaking it down PR wise made for anyone to be able to relate to that, because
mhm.
that's kind of how I wanted to speak to my brand or speak to my audience.
I think sometimes when I look at people that have a very public persona, a
Mhm,
real, a star or musician or actor, and they're doing things that they want to do versus what I'm sure their publicist is probably telling them what to do because they want to do what they want to do and they know everything, right?
mhm,
But how do you manage that? And if somebody doesn't even really know themselves and how to even present themselves,
mhm.
is there some sort of test that you go through,
Yeah.
like a Briggs somebody or something, where where people are really getting to know thyself, to
Mhm.
thy own self be true? How do you get there in an environment that's public?
Yeah, yeah. I think for us, like you said, it is taking those personality tests. For us, it starts with the initial consultation, right? So in the beginning, we want to learn about you as much as possible. Now, granted, if within those series of questions that we asked, and I say we because I do have a business partner based in New York, New Jersey, within those initial series questions that we asked, even if you may not have the answers, what can we do to help you get there, even if you don't understand your why? Because sometimes you might know your why, you just might not call it that, right? So we want to help you boil down to those nuts and those bolts as to why you got started. Why do you do the things that you do? For us, Intel Media Group is about creating impact, influence, and ingenuity through multicultural expression, or multicultural communications. So for us, I know the why. I know that I enjoy helping HBCU graduates because I am one. I know that I enjoy talking to women of color and telling Black stories. No, that doesn't mean that we won't tell any other stories, but what's important to me fundamentally are those things. So that's my why, and I share that with potential clients so that they can feel a little bit comfortable
Mhm.
sharing theirs.
Well, I think too that you mentioned Will and Jada, and too often people are, as they used to say 100 years ago, shooting from the hip.
Mhm,
They're being motivated by emotion opposed to intellect.
mhm.
How do you manage your clients who are very committed to their emotions versus their intellect?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the major things that I say, right, is PR is what people say about you, not what you say about yourself. So if you're always moving from emotion and people can see that, that's a problem. So what are some buffers that we can put in place to where as though if I know you are emotional, or if I know that you go off on Twitter and you go on these Twitter rants, what buffers can we put in place, not to 100% control you, but to make sure that you aren't moving from emotion and you are actually we're creating tailored responses for you. We're making sure that everything is singing from the same tune. And if there needs to be brevity in your responses, if there needs to be some level of a different consistency in what it is that you're saying, I want to make sure that those things are controlled so that you don't have to worry about it and you don't have to move from emotion. Because again, PR is what people say about you, not what you say about yourself.
Mm. PR is about what people say about you,
Mm-hmm.
not what you say about yourself. Because it's all flowers and blue skies. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying it
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and,
Yep.
and I don't have any weaknesses, I don't
Mm-hmm.
have any problems, I have no headaches, I don't get caught up in all of that madness. But that's a personal it, um, side of the story versus allowing you to take over and help direct me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Because it shapes public perception. PR shapes
mhm,
public perception. So
mhm,
with the media, those third party media validations, those stories and just different things of that nature where people are saying that about you.
mhm. So when you go in and there's a problem, do you do crisis management as well?
Mhm. We've done a bit of crisis. I think that sometimes crisis PR does take a little bit longer to shape, and especially if folks are already in the weeds of things.
Mhm,
Because with that you have to change someone's perception, right? Within reverse. So now I'm trying to change what people may think about you, and that's going to take a little bit longer. So if you've done something horrible, what do I then align you with to say,
mhm,
hey, this person isn't so bad, but some reputations you can't change. So yeah, it can just get really interesting when it comes to crisis management.
mhm. And we've seen that where, especially for corporations who are in a problem where there may be somebody being fired and it's a very public kind of conversation because the person has taken it to that level. How do you go in and what is the expectation that you forward to your client in their preparation because there's so much emotion being it's emotion driven, that's the word.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
emotion driven. How do you maintain that to be able to get that person, that client focused and off the ledge because they're
Yeah,
usually on the ledge and it's hard
especially
to
when
get
it gets to that point. So
right.
I think from there that then becomes a PR and a legal matter, right? Because that lawyer is helping shape what we say in a way as well.
Mhm.
So let's say this person, and I don't want to keep using in trouble, but
That's
trouble can
okay.
be different things.
Yeah.
Let's say this person was in trouble for something. What we would never want to do is there's a PR way to do things, but then there's a legal line to dance, right? So us and that lawyer would come up with a joint statement to make sure that that the company at its core is singing from the same tune. And from there, we're pushing that message out, and the client should only stick to the message that the lawyer and the communications team has then crafted.
Mhm.
So that way
And
it's not that way it doesn't invoke as much emotion. It's a little shorter, it's a little bit more simpler. It doesn't use a lot of terms and jargon, and in some regard it is pulling on heartstrings and humanizing this situation.
mhm. And so each statement relates to bringing them off the ledge, but also making certain that the public is calm
That the
for
public
those.
is calm and the public cares about what's going on, what's being said, who it's being said to, and easing their minds in a sense.
Mm.
Yes, it's about the company, but it's more so about easing that public perception.
And that's critical. It's
Hmm.
really critical. And too often, corporations find themselves in positions that they don't even know what to do.
Hmm.
And large corporations, particularly when there's a community issue or something, they don't know how to find the balance.
Yep.
And how do you help them navigate it? Because too often we get into a corporation where the leader is very emotional and sometimes too arrogant to understand what's going on and how it should be dealt with. How do you manage people that are in the middle of a crisis like that?
I think you also have to take them where the people are, right? Like back to knowing their target audience and us being clear on that is where are the people that you're impacting? Are they community driven organizations? Are they mission driven organizations? Are they the sororities and fraternities? Can we go where the people are and not just from going live and doing social media conversations, but can we do some things that require joint synergy? Are there events that we can tag on? Are there conversations that we can have in real time? Are there fireside chats that we can then have that again makes this company more humanized? So I
Hmm.
think those are some of the things that we would do depending, of course, on the situation and the severity of the situation.
Mhm. And that's huge. So I understand you have one of your clients with you, Dr. Michael Gary.
Yep.
Would you like to introduce him for us?
Of course, of course. So we have Dr. Michael Gary. He's the Chief Information Officer of Concentric Educational Solutions. They do a wide variety of work from Baltimore to Detroit, and they do home visits, they do mentoring, they do emotional intelligence. And for what we are doing in these school systems and what we have seen throughout the pandemic, I really think that their work is essential. And I'm proud to be a part of the Concentric family and Concentric team.
Well, let's bring him on board and hear about it. Hello, Dr. Gary.
How you doing, Miss Marsha?
I am great. I am great. So, talk about this company and what you're doing there and how you're involved with the young people.
So, Concentric Educational Solutions is a company that's about 10 years old. We partner with schools and school districts offering various student support services through one of three ways. Our primary service offering is the home visit framework, and that is our one core service. But more recently, we've added on mentoring and tutoring services as two separate service offerings or as a part of a comprehensive package.
So, let's back up. Did you say that you're going into the homes and working with young people?
Yep. So we knock on the door. We're at the door, trying to assess what barriers exist that impact the student's ability or willingness to come to school.
Hmm. So you're finding that is this during the pandemic? You're finding that young people are not even coming to school?
So chronic absenteeism is a problem that existed prior to the pandemic. What we learned from the over 50,000 home visits that we've done in the last few years is that the pandemic did nothing but exacerbate the
Mhm,
attendance problems that existed.
mhm. How do we change the lives of these children? Because the reality is, and we're having the same problem here in Baltimore, right? And it's a
Yes,
national
yes, ma'am.
issue, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So if we have young people who are not at grade level, so they're not reading
Hmm.
at grade level, they're
Hmm.
not even attending school, so they may be several semesters behind.
Hmm.
And in many cases, we do not have internet connection or computers, and they may or may not have it at home. How real is this program, and how, to me, it sounds like it's a crisis.
Okay. Yep. Yep. So definitely, I understand your feeling about saying that it's in crisis. What we do is we give parents and families in schools the opportunity to operate from their strengths. What I think the biggest problem is that you know we have an adversarial relationship between the family and between the school. between the school. And what that does is it leaves the student outside of the center of things, right? So we at Concentric, we put the student at the center of school phenomenon. We support schools in a way so that they can go into the homes or work with the students within the school to identify the barriers that exist, and then we also give parents and families the opportunity to elevate their voice so that they can feel that the school or school district is a partner in supporting the development of their child.
Mhm. Is this a program that can be deployed and deployed nationally?
Yes, definitely. Our hope is to touch as many students and families and schools and school districts as possible. But we're most concerned with is if we're entering in a partnership, is the student at the center of school phenomena? Like, are we really in there about the students? I don't want to be in situations where we're focusing on the adults. The students are experiencing the challenges, so I just want to make sure that we are, giving them access to the resources that they need so that they can be successful.
So, if you were to say from a national standpoint, because you're a national corporation, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So, from a national standpoint, how do you develop a strategy, or what type of strategy do you have? Because there's no rock that can't be unturned, because there's so many, you got to overturn everything. Everybody, this is to me, now this is Marsha, this is war. And
Hmm.
the children who are being impacted are children who have melanin just like we do,
Right.
right? And it's
Right.
all over this nation, and there has to be, I don't want to hear about another party. I don't want to hear about another event. I want everybody within the sound of my voice to understand that we need to be putting money, resources, time, and mental assistance and bodies in place in every school district in this nation. Am I being too extreme?
No, I need you to be more extreme, right? So I was
Okay,
just
I'm here.
having this conversation with my best friend yesterday, who is an assistant principal in Philadelphia. And the conversation, we always get super emotional about this because yes, it is war. It is a crisis. It is something that needs great attention. But what Concentric does when it's time for us to take our role into addressing this crisis or participating in this war is that we're very honest about how we support schools, school districts, students, and families. Okay.
Mhm.
This is what we do. I like to look at it from three uh, perspectives. First, what are the numbers saying, right? So the numbers are going to give us an opportunity to see the themes and that emerge as a result of the quantitative data. But we can't just stop at the numbers because that's often what people promote. They give you the numbers, this percentage, that
Mhm.
percentage. We have to do a deeper dive and connect ourselves to the story because in the end of the day, what we want to do is number three, intervene, right? But we can't provide an intervention if we don't know our students at the individual level. So here at Concentric, we're seeking to understand our students' experiences and then provide them with the most appropriate intervention. We're not just going in as another program. We're seeking to develop relationships with all parties involved with the student, most importantly, the student, and then supporting accordingly.
Mhm. What's happening in households where during COVID? COVID has changed has just exacerbated, right? So from the
Hmm.
last 2.5 years, we've got kids that don't have food to eat, they have kids that don't have a place to sleep, they're homeless. I mean, this has gone from one total extreme to another. How do we wrap our arms around this? And where is the leadership in the nation to support the work that you're doing? Because the reality is what you all are trying to do needs to be have a buy-in from agencies across this country, and
So
politicians need to get off of their behinds and deal with what we're looking at.
So while this is a crisis, I'll never say that this is a difficult problem to solve. The way that we're going to solve this problem or address students' needs is through partnerships, right? So you have different people that are responsible for different things, right? And what we can't do is misuse the people that are involved in the effort of supporting the whole child, right? So the school, right? If the school is set up and designed in a way that they can educate, and then that's their area of strength, we have to position schools to do that. If students and families need social services and social supports, we have to allow the agencies that are responsible for providing those services to do that. If there needs to be government, whether it's local, state, or federal government support, then they need to ensure that they are doing their part. We can't have people operating from a place of weakness, and that's where we often fail our students. We have people doing things that they're not trained to do. So when Concentric comes into a school system, we're seeking the best way how to bring all parties together in a way that most benefits the child.
In the way that most benefits the
That
child.
that best benefits the child. Excuse me.
That best, well, okay, same variation on the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. But here's the issue. So if we have superintendents in every district, and I don't know what those districts look like,
Mm-hmm.
that's the head of a district, right?
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere, is there an entity that manages, or an association that manages all of the superintendents nationally?
So I am not aware of more so of a superintendent's organization that influences or that manages them. But all superintendents, they have their boss, whether they're connected to the city or to the state. They have somebody that they're responsible for reporting to.
Mm-hmm.
But what I don't want to do is to place all of the blame in one area,
Oh,
right?
yeah, you can't
Yeah,
do that.
yeah. We
You
can't,
can't do that.
right. What we're seeking to do is to empower schools and school districts and extend their reach beyond the resources that they have within the school. Because when you're thinking about something like home visits, right? It I've done 3-4 thousand home visits as a chief of an organization. There are not many people within the school who have the time to commit to doing thousands and thousands of home visits. David, our founder and CEO, he has done over 70,000 home visits in over the last 10 years. So when we're just talking about the sheer quantity of doors that we've knocked on, we provide schools and school districts with a great advantage into seeing the experiences on the ground that our students and our families are having.
So, in looking at what are the top 5 things that, because this show is national,
Hmm.
people live in different places. So, if we're looking at changing the trajectory of what these children are learning and where they are, what are the things that we need to be doing? Should there be some sort of entity in each state that works with the state legislatures or the city, or what can communities do? What can people, citizens do to help this situation, to help our kids?
Well, I think the first step and the most important step is to establish a foundation of trust between our school systems and our families. When we're thinking about elementary schools, for example, I remember I was doing a home visit in South Baltimore, and I knocked on the door, and this older gentleman answered, and I said I was from the school and where his grandchild went. And he said to me, he was like, "Oh, I remember when I was in school in 1955, and I had Mr. Jones as my math teacher, right? And he had a pleasant experience. But then on the flip side, right,
Mm.
there are times when I knock on doors and then grandparents have not had pleasant experiences with their schools. So we have these generational experiences that are passed down into our kids, which have an impact on their ability to be successful. So if I was to offer one thing, right, and we don't have all of the answers, but if I was to offer one thing, is to establish that foundation of trust and establish a strong relationship between the family in the school, and then that is going to allow for us to be better partners to each other, so that the student has the best opportunity for success.
And Dr. Gary, I wanted to say this as well. If we can talk a little bit about, and this is what a publicist does, Ms. Marsha, if we can talk a little bit about the One Door at a Time series that you all
Mm-hmm.
are working on.
Mm-hmm. So, Concentric is in the process of producing a written manuscript, a picture book, and a documentary. And what we wanted to do is not only deliver the service, but we wanted to write about the services. Typically, what you have is organizations that take the more academic approach and they're just doing the research and the reading. And then you have other organizations that are just out there, on the ground, connected directly with the people that they serve, right? What we wanted to do was take the best opportunity to do both, right? Because people, even I was just speaking with one of my staff members earlier about the best type of study. The best type of study for a dissertation, I would argue, is the mixed methods, right? When you are looking at it from a quantitative perspective and a qualitative perspective. So, best opportunity for us as an organization was for us to be able to understand and add to the literature, but then also have authenticity about the experiences that our students and our families are having. So through our One Door at a Time series, we are going to give you a visual perspective of what Concentric is about, how we support families, students, and schools. We're going to give you a picture book that is going to account of some of the still images that we see when we're engaging the communities that we support. And then the written manuscript where we're talking about the research according to the problems, the causes, and the solutions.
Have you all had the opportunity to have one-on-ones with some of the young people, some of the students?
All the time. That's you know the most important part about it. Again, I can't stress, we always enough that we always put the student at the center of school phenomenon. So that means that we need to hear their voice. We're actually wrapping up a study, partnering with Johns Hopkins University, where we're evaluating our services, and the student voice was one of the most major parts of that study.
So what is, if at all possible, I know that this is proprietary information and it's not public yet, but could you highlight a couple of items that you were able to glean from the young people?
So when evaluating our tutoring and mentoring services, we offer high dosage tutoring. So that's tutoring that lasts between 30 and 60 minutes. And what we found that students wanted tutoring more frequently. Now we're offering tutoring 4 days a week, right? And they wanted it for longer periods of time. And that kind of blew my socks off because I didn't expect that. I expected it to be more so relational, right? Because we know that there's a gap there. But when they said they wanted access to more learning support, that that made me feel excellent, and you should have saw the little dance that I did when I saw when I got the data from Johns Hopkins, because it really surprised me, and it was a testament to students being able to advocate for themselves. See, what
Hmm.
we have social emotional learning as this theory and this concept, and when people deploy those strategies, they come from a position that they assume that students don't have the
Right.
ability or emotional intelligence. And I'm the first to tell you that they do. They just have to apply it in the way that it meets their basic needs. And what we need to do is ensure that their basic needs are met so that they have the opportunity to grow and flourish and be productive members of society.
So say out loud for me, what are their basic needs?
So they need I was thinking
I,
three hots at
I
a
just
time.
need, I need you to say it. I want it on the record.
Yeah,
I need it
I
on the
want the
record.
record. So they definitely need to have a safe and stable living environment that is inclusive of all of the meals that they need within a day, right? They need to be able to go to and from school without being concerned with being robbed or walking past drug addicts or just traveling in an unsafe environment. They need to engage in or be enrolled in schools that are prepared to support them and meet their needs academically. I would say that if I was to put that in a nutshell, it starts at home, right? So they need a stable living environment, and while transitioning to school, they need a safe learning environment, a stable learning environment.
So in in far too many homes across this country, there are a lot of personal issues and crises that are going on within that home, in many
Mm-hmm.
homes,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if we're looking at trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trauma in a home, and
Mm-hmm.
then trauma when you go outside to
Of the
go
home.
to the next place,
Mm-hmm.
to go to school, and
Mm-hmm.
then trauma when you get in the school
Mm-hmm.
and the bullies, and then teachers who are not that have not made the commitment to be there, right? The kind of
Yes.
commitment we would need, right?
Right. Right.
And then we have the issue of how they see themselves,
Right.
right? So now there's a personal, emotional issue that you've got to deal with. That's a lot for an elementary school student, a lot for a middle school student, a lot for somebody in high school. How do we deal with that? How do you wrap that, or what is it that your company does to help these young people navigate it? I see you fine. Can you hear me?
Okay. I think I'm back. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Okay. So what Concentric does is we take an explorative approach. Our home visits, our student engagement doesn't come from a place of penalty, right? We're seeking to understand their experience so that we have the best opportunity to connect them to the resources that they need to be successful. And when we are speaking about adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, as we call it in education, we want to make sure that we come from a trauma informed perspective so that we are not passing judgment. We are understanding that children's experiences have nothing to do with like me, Michael Gary, as an individual, but I might be encountering what they have to deal with. And when I operate from that lens, then I have the best opportunity to reach a student because I'm seeking to understand and find the best way to support them.
Hmm. And so when you have young people who have gone through all of the process of functioning in an environment that's at school and at home, what are the processes that you use that parents could benefit from helping students to be able to focus, to help them to understand that they, by any means necessary, they've got to get their education. By any means necessary, they've got to be able to do that. How do we help them and encourage them as a community, churches, or whatever?
So so you said something that was important and key, right? So we elevate the student voice. We want to make sure that parents and families understand what the root of the problem is and provide students the opportunity, or their children the opportunity, in a safe space to communicate with them. I did a home visit in Cherry Hill, in the projects. I knocked on the door. The mom didn't want to come downstairs. That usually gets me upset because we're trying to knock on the door and to see how we could best support the student. And so I just started having a conversation with the elementary school kid, and I said, so, I'm here. I just was trying to figure out why you haven't been attending this school. And he said, well, I don't like school. And, children quickly say that, right? So I said, okay, well, why don't you like school? He said, I don't like my teacher. And we've all heard that before. And I said, why don't you like your teacher? So he goes to tell me that my teacher makes me read. And I said, well, what's wrong with that? And he said, because I don't read well. And I said, well, who
Mm.
did you tell? And he said, nobody. And I said, well, why didn't you tell anybody? He was like, well, I didn't tell my mom because I didn't want her to be mad at me. And I was like, wow, right? This student was emotionally intelligent enough to redirect his whole educational experience so that he doesn't have to experience trauma in the household connected to an inability that he has academically, right? So I asked him, I said, well, why didn't you, why are you telling me? He said, because you can't do anything to me. And I said, well, okay,
Wow.
well, I could do something for you, right?
Oh,
And then that was the opportunity for a breakthrough, right? So then I connect and partner with the school and say, hey, this was the experience that I had. When you're engaging this parent, this is the way that you need to engage them so that the student doesn't lose trust or more trust in the school. And then you have a student that becomes further disengaged.
right. And if that child can't have a conversation that's opened at home, that means the mother or father are disconnected
Hmm.
and they're not going to the school to do any follow up and checkup.
Right. Right. So at the onset of the conversation, we talked about, parent and family relationships with the school, right? So you have a couple of types of parent and family involvement. You have in school, public and private parent and family involvement, and the private being the one-on-one teacher conferences that we are familiar with, and then the public type of parent and family involvement when we are talking about, the PTA or chaperoning trips. But then you also have in-home parent and family involvement, right? So this is the opportunity where where schools have the chance to get the most gain. If we are not always expecting them to come to us as educators and we're going to them, then we're providing them an opportunity to speak with us from a place where they may feel the most safe. And then we're balancing the scales of hierarchy that may present itself when you have Dr. So and so inviting you to the school to talk about what Michael did or did not do in school.
Hmm. So, is there some sort of kit that you guys could make up that can one be directed directly to the parents?
So what we do, we partner with schools to develop a resource map. And that resource map is going to speak to the needs of the students within their community. So they look different for each school. I'm thinking about one school, Matthew Henson, for example, where the students in that neighborhood may buy eggs individually, right? So if we're talking about providing a resource, $50 goes a long way in that community, right? When I grew up in North Philly, we used to buy half cartons of eggs. I didn't know that people were buying individual eggs, right? So when we're
Wow.
talking about offering support and not necessarily direct support to the students, but to those people in the community, that provides the opportunity for the community members to talk and elevate the status of the school.
That's
Does that
deep.
make sense? Hmm.
Yes, that's
So
deep.
it's
Go
mhm.
ahead.
Yeah, so it's not all like I said, if we are all participating in addressing the problem, then the lift isn't so heavy. We're talking about $50 going a long way, right?
Mhm.
Where you're often hearing people asking for multi-million dollar budgets or multi-million dollar solutions. Concentric isn't a multi-million dollar solution. We're a solution that starts and finishes with the student.
Starts and finishes with the students. But how do you also bring those administrators to the table to understand all of these layers? Because it's
So
not just the teachers, it's also the administrators and the superintendents who also, and the governor that needs to be all part of this. Or am I missing something?
so our reach hasn't hit the state level yet per se, but we have partnered with Wayne County in Michigan, and Wayne County has heard the voice of those students that are in their community. And Wayne County is where, excuse me, where Detroit lies.
Mhm.
And this past year, we had the opportunity to go out and conduct home visits for thousands of students who were deemed missing. They didn't return back to school after COVID, right? So there was a need that was to be met for that particular community, and then the county RISA responded. So
Mm.
it, you know, people are aware, right? And as long as we position ourselves as thought partners and not just a transactional type of vendor, then we have the best opportunity to service our
Mhm.
students. Yes.
So why don't you give, is there a way that people can get in touch with you if they have questions or want to learn more about your organization?
Yes, I could be reached at MGARY, so M Gary at concentriced.org. Concentric is spelled CONCENTRICED as in dog.org. And our website is www.concentriced.org.
All right. Dr. Michael Gary Jr., Chief Information Officer of Concentric Educational Solutions. And I am really excited that Miss Regan, I don't know if she disappeared. Uh,
Oh,
thank you.
she's there.
Uh, thank
Miss
you.
Marsha, thank you always. We really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure. And we would just love to stay in touch. We'd love to have Dr. Heber and the rest of the team back on. And you actually know our Chief Academic Officer, Monique Dibby.
Goodbye.
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 Yes, and she's brilliant. She used to be a principal. I
Yes.
Yeah,
love her. Ah!
she
Oh,
just said
okay.
that. I love that. I love that. I love that.
Yes.
I
Oh,
just
she is bad and beautiful. Right?
love her.
I love her. So give her a big hug for me, and we'll have to bring her on to talk because she loves those babies
Yes,
and
she
she
does.
she takes no prisoners. And that's what we need, warriors in this fight. So know
Oh,
that
she's
you
definitely a
have a
warrior.
warrior over here. What'd you
Yes,
say?
I
yes.
said she's
So
definitely a warrior.
yeah, yeah.
She don't
Let us
play.
know when you love to have her on. Literally, I'm texting her right now, and she said the exact same thing. So whenever you would love to have her on, she would love to
Oh,
be
she's
there.
coming. She's coming. We'll talk offline and get all that laid out. But it's that type of she used to be a principal and now she's
Hmm.
in she knows what this is all about and she understands it and she's not tolerating it. And that's what we need, the warriors, and you all are the warriors, and please take your shields and your staff and keep on moving, and we're really proud of you, and just know that you have a place here and we'll support whatever we can whenever you can.
Likewise, thank you so
Thank
much,
you so
Marsha.
much.
Thank you so much for
Thanks,
coming,
Miss
and
Marsha.
thank you so much for all of your hard work, and I thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
our pleasure
It's
and our
much.
duty.
It's yes, it's necessary. We have to save the children for real.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you very,
Thank
very
you.
much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Michael Gary and Reagan, the Ray, the publicist. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank
See you
you.
soon.
All
Thank
Bye
right.
bye.
Wow. We really have to deal with the truth. And it's not just a Baltimore, it's not just Detroit, it's across this country. Educational systems have just imploded, and we really need to make certain that our children are not left behind. And, we've got to stop looking at all that foolishness on the outside and start looking inward to our own communities and what we're going to do to try to help them. And we'll be right back with our next guest. Troy LaMail Stovall, CEO with Tedco, and Linda Singh, Executive Director of Tedco Women's Leadership. And we'll be right back. And here we are. And let's see, we've got folks coming in. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. It's always going to happen. So we already know that we just keep it moving, right? And now I just need to find the information. And we'll be right with them. Oh, I'll tell you. I think one of the things that was really interesting to be able to see here was to be able to have folks listen to the show that was going on today. And the first part of the show, where people are actually dealing with the fact that we have so many problems in our school systems, and it's not just here in Baltimore, it is all over. And we've got to deal with the fact that our kids need help, and the parents need help as well. And we can't do it, we can't ignore it, because we've got to affect change in these kids' lives, and it's not fair. It's just not fair. So thank you all for your patience. Our next guest, Troy Lamel Stovall, CEO of Tedco, and Linda Singh, Executive Director of Tedco Women's Leadership. We'd like to welcome them here. We've got a whole lot. I know we're a little bit behind, but ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Marsha, for having us on. Sorry for the little technical difficulties.
Yeah, I sent the wrong one. I don't know what happened. I sent the wrong one to you, so you'd have the wrong link, I think. So trying to keep up with all the links and all the technology. But you know about technology. Tell us about Tedco. What is Tedco in the state of Maryland?
Absolutely, ma'am. Again, thank you, Marsha, for having us on. Thanks, Belinda, for taking this evening to be with us tonight. So now, Tedco is, we do all the early stage technology investments for the state of Maryland. And I guess a couple of words in that definition. First, early stage. Early stage for us, Marsha, means the way I like to describe it is it's basically right out of that napkin. When someone's had that really cool idea, they put it on the back of a napkin, or it's a great idea coming out of one of our great research labs here in Maryland. And we bring both of those. We try to bring it and understand the commercial viability of that napkin idea, give them the resources that includes money and support, and bring them to a point of helping to build a real firm we want to get them to the point where they are commercializable and actually can scale and become the next great companies that come out of Maryland. The technology piece, we historically have focused on the traditional technology like intellectual property, things that can really that has some concrete to us. We've really, particularly under Linda's leadership, she preceded myself. I've been there now 2 years. We've really begun to expand that definition and broaden what that technology enablement really means, so that we can, frankly, go into those communities that have historically been underrepresented, underinvested, underserved, and how do we bring this venture capital type modality into communities, both demographically and geography, that have not historically seen that, which is what we will be talking about here tonight.
So, Troy, I've used a napkin before, right?
Yeah.
The scribble scrabble with an idea, and it comes at the oddest time. This brainstorm, right? When people are looking at a business or the idea starts to germinate, right? And I now need to come to you. I hear that you guys have all of the bells and the whistles. You can handle all my business. You can take me from point A to a multi-million-dollar company, and I've got a big office building. And I'm doing all this great vision, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What are the real steps that we need to deal with? And not only the real steps, but the reality of every step that we make, and how we can be deliberate in those steps.
Wow, Marsha, that's a huge question, and I'll be honest with you, it'll take probably more time than we have here tonight. But and part of it is what Linda and I are going to be talking about as far as our support of women and Black women entrepreneurs. But I'll break it down maybe into three three stages, but it's even more than that. I think the first stage is what's called the ideation stage. And that's what you just described. It's someone has a great idea. And so part of what we want to do at ideation stage is can we ask the question, does that idea have some marketability? Can we take that idea and take it from that napkin and turn into what we call what's called in the venture community a proof of concept or POC or a minimum viable product or MVP. And so we want to know, can you make the gadget? Can you make the software? Can you make it work? So that's that first stage. Mm-hmm. Once we know we have a thing, then we want to ask ourselves, well, will somebody buy it? And can we get one or two people to kind of buy it or at least try it in some type of piloting? And we might call that the seed stage. And so we're trying to move them from this cool little idea that's on the back of a napkin that we've been able to, tinker truck it or, Lego it together and present it to the community, present it to the market and ask ourselves, can we make money at it? Will somebody buy it? Can we manufacture it? So those are real basic questions. Mm-hmm. And then the next stage is building a real firm around it. Can we hire the talent? What's going to be, how are you going to be thinking about how do you take this to market? What is your what's called go-to-market plan? How do you think about that? And what markets are you going after? Everyone thinks they can sell it to 10 different markets. At that stage, I want to know, can you sell it to one market? And how do you enter that market? And do you understand the cost to enter that market? And do you understand the margins? And do you quite understand what it's going to cost to manufacture that? Once we get past that third stage, then we have a real firm. And we have a firm that's probably scalable. And that's really where we get excited because not only can we produce additional capital, we can attract traditional institutional capital or traditional venture capital to really scale them. So while we're putting $1 in along the way, we want to find somebody that's going to put $1,000 or $10,000 or $1 million to really scale them up.
Scaling is really more than a notion.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like it's a vision, but it's the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So you're a separate organization within the state of Maryland.
Yeah, so we're an oddity, as I like to say. We are technically.
Sometimes you need that. You need that though. Don't get me started. We need that. You don't always want that over there.
Yeah. So we're a little odd duck. We're technically called a quasi-government agency. For your audience, that just basically means the staff, myself, and the rest of our team, what we call the One Tedco team. We are not state employees. Although we receive a tremendous amount of our funding from the state, we are not state employees. And that because we are not, that frankly gives us the ability to do some things that the state cannot do, which is why they set us apart, why they created this different animal, and many other states do as well. And so that doesn't mean we don't have responsibility to the state. We have a ton of responsibility. We have a ton of reporting and transparency back to the state. But because we are the separate entity, that gives us the ability to, frankly, to look like a private entity. And we really do compete against and with other private equity firms here in the state of Maryland, outside of the state of Maryland. And if we didn't have that structure, we would not be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that you can also do funding,
Absolutely.
Project funding. Is there a ceiling on the funding capability or the products that you make? Are they clearly defined, or the programs, I guess, or the people that you're?
Yeah, I'd say I change a little word because we don't fund.
Okay.
So what we fund are companies, and so
corporations. Yeah.
So Marsha Juice has a great idea, and she wants to take that idea to market. We'll help you. You talked about my first stage. We will help you think about what we call that pre-seed station. We'll help you with that napkin idea. We really will help you bring it into that proof of concept or minimum viable. We'll help you do that and help you get funding for that. And so we want to fund Marsha Juice LLC, and we want to help you grow whatever company that is, that tech-based company. We want to provide that early stage funding for you so that you can move along those stages that I described, move you along and get you to a point where we can present you to the traditional venture capital market and say, look, she's ready to scale. She's ready to move from having a bunch of small pilots and maybe 1 or 2 customers to a couple of hundred customers, to moving from $10,000 of revenue to $10 million of revenue. That's the scaling effect that we're trying to take our firms to. And we've done that. We've had tremendous impact over our 23 years. We just released a report a little over a year ago showing our the tremendous almost $3 billion, which we know is undercounted in terms of economic impact to the state. More than 10,000 jobs, which we think is undercounted. So we know that our model works, and we're actually trying to find a way to actually bring even more scale to that model.
So, but it's to be real clear, to set aside, and I'm sure that we have folks who are watching who are thinking of growing a business or creating a business or have a business that they're trying to develop. And we're only looking at something that is in engineering, science, STEM related.
That's the point I was making earlier about technology. So I'll give you a very quick example. So again, Linda's smiling because she knows.
I know, I was just crazy. What you laughing about, Linda? I got to get to know you, girl.
I'll tell you, Marsha, one of the largest tech-based biology, because remember we do biology life, the biggest biology life science business in the world, highly fragmented but highly loyal customer base. A lot of customer marketing and product. And you know what it's called? It's called Black Women's Hair Care.
Right on. And that's real.
And
it's a multi-bazillion-dollar industry.
Highly fragmented, no clear, and no venture capital.
What is that? Wait. What do you mean highly fragmented? What does that mean?
What a fragmented market means is there's no one big player. Like in the soda business, you got two strong players, Coke and Pepsi. That's not a fragmented market. Or the airline business. You got 3-4 major players. That's not a fragmented market. But Black women's hair care is highly fragmented. You can't find any one player that's got probably more than 40-50% market share. That's a highly fragmented. So fragmented marketing means that there is no one player that has a significant market share over any of the other players in that market space. Wow. And that's the case in Black women's hair care. But you have no huge financial backing happening in either. You have no big private equity, which is the next stage of capital beyond venture capital. You have where we play, and I'll answer your earlier question. We start out putting about $150,000 in. We cap out at about $2 million. Traditional venture capital firms might write up to a $10 or $20 million check, maybe even a $40. The really big private equity firms are writing $500 million and $1 billion check. So that's the difference in the scaling that's happening between those firms. So back to the point. So we received about $5 million from the governor right when I first started to help underinvested companies that had been impacted by COVID. And the quick version of the story, the investment team was this white guy who's telling me this story. And then 2 Black women, and the white guy had veto power over all the investments. And we got presented with a young lady who had a really nice hair care product idea, but he had no idea because he was a white guy, so he had no idea how to really understand the market for this. So he thought it wasn't a good investment. The 2 Black women were like, "Where's this been all my life?" And we made the investment. And now that young lady is doing extremely well. Is probably going to come back and get some of our more traditional funds. We've made in the last 2 years, actually, beyond that, when Linda was there, we have been farther out into some of the service-based businesses, where service-based businesses are using technology to change the way in which they deliver their service, scale their service, or defend their service. So the quick example, the joke that I tell is. And we all are old enough to remember George Jefferson. And some of your viewers, if you don't know George,
I'm not that old. I don't.
Go check out.
Don't be add me to your old list. Just
let
this gray hair fool you, brother.
I know you went to Dillard.
How you know about my business?
My dad went to Dillard.
What? Did I know your dad? Did not scary. Lord have mercy. I know your daddy knows me.
I think so.
Oh, good goobly loobly. All right. Look, that's a sidebar conversation. I was only there for 5 minutes. I was only there for 5 minutes. That's funny. We'll talk about that later.
So if George Jefferson came back, Marsha, and started a cleaning business and wanted to do that cleaning business using technology that clean clothes better, faster, cheaper, or deliver them in some Uber-like fashion, the question I want to ask is, George a great technologist who happens to be in the cleaning business, or is he a cleaning entrepreneur who's using technology to change the cleaning business? Uber is a great example of that. Uber changed what we now call ride sharing business, but it changed the taxi business by applying technology to a traditional business. That's the type of things we want to be investing in Tedco.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, by having that, we're able to move into markets, frankly, urban markets, rural markets that we have traditionally not been an investor in.
Right. You know, as you were talking about, and I know we're going to talk about the Women's Leadership Program with Tedco, and it's really important. There are several Black entrepreneur females that have gone really crazy, and Target has really been taking a lot of those women, those female products, Black hair products,
Yep.
and putting them in, and they have had an open door policy for this particular line.
Yep.
And you know, I think that one of the things that I want us to talk about is sometimes we have a dream and we see different things, but we can't always see ourselves there.
Amen.
Right?
Amen. Look,
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, look, Linda's gonna be talking, but look, Linda is a great example of that. I mean, her life story is one who, if you just separate what she's become from what she came from, there's no way you can say where's the straight line between those two things. There's just not. Linda knows I love, and there's not a straight line between where she started to where she is now. And so, to answer your question, is I think you got to have the Linda Sings and other Black women that we know are out there telling their stories. That's part of what we're trying to do with the Black women's effort that we have. Is we need to allow these women to be able to say, I can be that. Yeah. And no matter where I started, no matter what I'm going through, no matter how hard it is, and it's hard, and no matter the struggles, and there are going to be more struggles, I can do that too. And if nothing else we get out of this, I want one Black woman who's listening to, I say, I can do that too.
Mm-hmm. And we've got to create an environment where they can see themselves there. There's one thing to see whatever is on this wall right here, but there's another thing to be able to project and see yourself down the road with the store on the corner and the big manufacturing plant downtown. And so you got to see yourself there in order for those dreams to really start to materialize. Amen. Linda, since we're talking about, we need to talk about your story. You are in a very serious leadership role with Tedco, and this is really powerful that you're there. First of all, I'm just glad to see all this melanin down at Tedco. So y'all just need to hear. Y'all just, I'm just tickled. I'm just tickled. And so this is really important because, you know, representation matters. I don't care what nobody says. And I've been to enough of those programs and everybody around here knows me, but I'm tickled to see this melanin in the screen here with the CEO and the COO running over there at Tedco. I am delighted. I'm delighted. So, Miss Linda, please, we've got the bio and all that. People get our newsletter, so it's all in there. But I need you to talk about who you are and what you're doing there and why it's so important.
Right. So first, I'm not the COO of Tedco.
Well, I thought it was the CEO. Wait a minute. Hold on. I thought it said COO. Okay. Executive Director, Woman Entrepreneur Leadership. It should be COO though, but whatever.
Oh my gosh.
Y'all know it's just me. Y'all should already know that. If you knew I went to Dillon, you should have known that she gonna say whatever she gonna say.
All right. So I am doing a wide variety of things, but you know, what I think is so important in this overall discussion is for women to be able to have that safe space. And whether it's Black women entrepreneurs or just women entrepreneurs, it's being able to have the safe space to have discussions like what we're having, right? To talk about, you know, what those challenges are, because it is not a straight path. You know, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm working in my own business. I am, you know, still trying to pave the way to do larger government contracts, and it's not easy. And so helping them to see, you know, how you can set your plan, how you can go after it, how you can have the right conversations, and oh, by the way, how you can lean on one another to be able to say, you know, hey, I see that you were able to accomplish this. Can you give me some tips and pointers? where you may not necessarily be as comfortable doing that if it was someone that didn't look like you. And so the Women's Entrepreneurship Program, and especially the Black Women Entrepreneurship Program, is to really allow them to have these conversations. And, it's called the Open Institute because we can't necessarily prevent others from joining the program. But what we hope is that there will be a guy, right, that joins the program, or there will be somebody that doesn't look like them, because that's how you start enriching the conversations. And the programs are focused on what I call 3 verticals. The first is about leadership and communication and assessing your skills, assessing where you are as really the COO or the CEO, or one of the founders of the company or the co-founder of the company. That middle piece is how you're going to go about doing business, having conversations about what you see the challenges and hurdles, and having those conversations with experts that work out in the field. And then the last piece of it is bringing that all together in a plan. And that plan it's not a business plan. This is about a strategic plan that's going to allow you to leverage your personal, your professional, and your business in a direction that's going to allow you to see growth, right? So you have to be able to not just see yourself at that future point, but you also have to see your company. And, one of the things that is really the tagline for my company is that we like to change the way you see the world. And you can only do that by looking, taking your lens and kind of widening that aperture, and then saying, I see all these things, but I can have all of that. So now how do I go forth and really set that? And so, we're really excited about this program because I think, we want to be able to have, in the end, a cohort of women for women. And I know that everybody is moving, out, and there's tons of programs that focus in on this. And I think, the Tedco program is very unique in the sense that we can not only, lead them to kind of this visioning piece, but also to help them get connected to the right resources, get connected to the ecosystem, and more importantly, help to prop them up.
What's really interesting here is that you are a retired general, and there are in the Department of Defense. And so when looking at women, you've already scaled heights that most women, especially women of color, don't make, right? And so for you to be up there handling that business and being at a cabinet secretary level, secretary of the cabinet level, you understand real leadership and the impact that it can have. But to have a Black woman managing those units is huge. And so to be able to take, I used to set up military exhibits for the United States Marine Corps. So I know about y'all generals and all that, Black engineers, stars and stripes. Y'all don't be playing, right? But it's that type of leadership that we really need for us to be able to move to the levels that others have already exceeded.
Yeah.
And so what is it that we need to do as a community of women of color, and how can we support what you're doing, and what do you need? What are those things that'll be the wind underneath your sails?
So, I think the biggest thing that we need is to really link to organizations that can help provide funding, right? And what I would like to say is fund one, grow one. So really to get others to help provide the support so that we can push as many women through this program for them to be successful. By 2025, we want to have been able to touch 250 businesses, which means 250 women, and bringing them into a cohort. And that may seem like that's not a lot, but when you're thinking about women entrepreneurs, that's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Now, is this to be something regional that we need here, or is this a national program or local program? How is that established? Well, you got that smile for what you smiling. You this sound like a conversation you had yesterday or something, huh?
But we have that conversation all the time, and I'll let Troy kind of answer. It's starting out Maryland based, and there's reasons why, because of how Tedco is set up. But I
Yep.
think what we would like to ultimately see at some point, as this program, as the institute begins to get funded, and we're standing up the institute as a nonprofit, so a 501(c). I don't know if it's going to be 3C or whatever it's going to be, right? But and so we're really setting it up to be its own entity so that, once we've had success here in the Maryland area, that we can scale, because we realize that there's a need. And if you look at many other programs, there are some that, might have bits and pieces, but this is a 10-month long program. So this is not a, in 1 week you're in and out. This is a commitment that someone needs to make over a 10-month period for about 10 hours a month.
That's huge. The Greater Baltimore Committee has the leadership program here, and it goes through 9 months or something like that. It's a long thing, and but one of the things, I went through the program 100 years ago, and it was very helpful. These leadership programs are really important, and I hope the people listening will pay attention to what's being said here. We can't always be in an isolated environment to get to where we need to go. We need to be in an environment where we are with like minds who are in the business of empowerment.
Yes.
Who are in the business of understanding all of the foolishness that is coming your way, obstacles that they try to say aren't there, but we already know that they are. They're just subtle, right? They're just subtle. And we already know your game. It ain't new. Y'all been doing it for hundreds of years. So what we have to be looking at, though, is how do we bring what you're doing to a broader community and to develop relationships with a cohort of people to get involved into what you're doing now. I love the idea. Absolutely love the idea.
I appreciate that, and Linda, I don't want your audience to lose sight of something that Linda said. Though it's the Open Institute, and so it's not just about creating this coalition of women or Black women, but it's, to be blunt, it's also about finding the white guy who can be in a room with a bunch of other Black women or other women, and so get a sense of the challenges that they face. So that person, as they probably will be in a position of influence and power and access to resources, can frankly have a better lens. So Linda's point about better lens. We're also trying to not only provide a greater lens for these women, but also for others who have the control of the resources that these women need. And so how to make sure that that's happening is the other thing. And the other part of this, back to the scaling nationally, is and why we're starting in Maryland, not only because Tedco has this responsibility to Maryland, but our key partners are the 4 Maryland HBCUs. So that being Bowie State, Coppin State, Morgan State, and the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. They are our partners, and I just want to make it clear they're our partners. But that doesn't mean we're excluding this to just their alums, to their students. We're just using the great intellectual property, the great facilities, the great professors, the great resource that all 4 of the institutions have around various aspects of entrepreneurship. We're bundling all those together, and they're part of the governance of the 501 that Linda mentioned. But the whole point of all this is not just to create those women entrepreneurs and give them, but the whole point, remember, is at the end of the day, Maryland is competing for talent. Maryland is competing for ideas. That's not just nationally, but across. And so if we can create via the napkin ideas and the Open Institute and the work that we do in what we call E3 and all the other pieces that we have, Marsha, if all of a sudden Maryland is seen in the same sentence as other areas in this country that have great innovation, entrepreneurial ecosystems, that benefits all of us. And so these are just elements of what we're doing so that we make Maryland more competitive and make a place where talent and capital want to come and make it a home.
I think you're absolutely right. When we talk about the GBC and that leadership program, it's not done without corporate participation. And so you have to have, I mean, you can't get there from here always. We'd like to be, at some point, but we're not. And so we need to be able to make certain that we're realistic about our environment and that we have a communication that's straight up no chaser with the people that we want to be involved with, right? Because sometimes we want to dance around it, but we don't have any more time. We don't have any more time. We really need to go ahead and just be straight up here. Here's the bottom line. This is what we need to do. This is what we need you to do in order for, if you're committed, are you committed? Are you committed?
Yep.
Then come on, join us, right? Just join us. And that's real.
That's real.
We can't get there from here.
Amen.
And we already know it. We
Amen.
already know it. Tell us, I know we're moving fast, but give us some ideas of what we should be telling our audience. And you all will be able to take this link and hopefully do something with it and use it, that there's information in here that people will be able to, one, take some time to do some soul searching and to see who they are and where they're going and how they can help others get to where that place of solace is, or the place of development, or the place of growth. But it has to be with partnerships, and we know that. And Maryland's a big state. Baltimore is a big place, but we need to be able to have honest conversations about what your goals and objectives are, which I applaud.
Well, thank you for that. So I'm gonna let Linda talk about. We've got 2 pilots that she's helping to lead. One in Montgomery County, one in Howard County. But I think, and thank you, our marketing team led by Miss Tammy Thomas. She makes all this magic happen, and she'll figure all this out. And I know Tammy. But I would invite folks to go to our website, tedcomd.com. Ton of great resources there. Both the financial resources and our non-financial resources. Again, I think it's important, Marsha, that people understand. We don't just write checks at Tedco. That's a lot of what we do. But we do everything from providing people coaches, advisors, access to lawyers, access to talent resources. So there's a ton of resources that we provide at Tedco beyond just the check writing. And that's what makes the holistic part of what we do.
Mm-hmm. And so in looking at the Tedco and the technology and the biological pieces, and I heard you talk about the HBCU. So we're looking at young people who are in college, who are perhaps creating some of these products there, or what are we doing? You're shaking, General, you're shaking your head. I like calling you General now.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's more than that, right? So you will get the entrepreneurs coming out of college that have the great ideas and they want to move it forward. For our Women Entrepreneur Leadership Program, you need to have some revenue already, and you need to be thinking about how you want to grow and scale your business. And so it's not necessarily for the individual that's at that ideation stage. It really is for the organization that, depending on which program you're looking at, there's minimum revenue requirements for each of the programs. And that means that you need to have at least some ability to where you're actually generating revenue on an annual basis. If you go out to the website, it gives you all the details. We're getting ready to launch our 2, our applications are getting ready to launch again for Montgomery County. So if you're a small business, a woman-owned business in Montgomery County, please go out there and apply to be part of that cohort. We're only taking 25. So this is not like it's 100 people can get into the program. And then we're getting ready to launch the one for Howard County as well. And so those applications are going to be live here within the next week. And you do need to be part of the county-based, meaning your organization has to be within the county, either Montgomery County or Howard County. And then at some point here, we will have one that'll be focused across the state, where it really doesn't matter, where you're from, because we know that there is a need. So I would say that, please go out and start taking a look at the materials, but we're getting ready to open back up those applications. so that we can actually start these cohorts in October. And so we're going to be ready to go. But, one of the things that I also wanted to hit on is, when you think about what Troy has said in terms of the resources at Tedco, most people think, oh, I have this idea and it's really easy and the only thing I need is money. They forget about the financial planning piece of it. They forget about the human resources piece of it. They forget about just their overall back office and, how are things going to really truly work. They forget about their salespeople and thinking about how they're going to go about selling. And so utilizing the resources at Tedco helps you to have a better view of all the different pieces that you need to put together. You can't just use one piece. You have to use all of the resources if you're going to make it a go.
Amen.
All of the resources. And so when we go to the website, does that website give you a primer to get you prepared?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we actually, again, through the team, we have a kind of a survey query, kind of walk you through, ask you some questions about where you are and where you are in the process. And it guides you to it gives you some recommendations. But I think it's an important point for me to make here. And if nothing else, people remember, yes, use that tool to give you some sense of where to start. But at Tedco, what we love to talk about is our ability to stack all the resources we have at you. So no matter where you start at Tedco, all the rooms in the Tedco house are available to you. Mm-hmm. So people think they think they can game it, or I can only apply to this one. No, we look at you, we look at where you are, and we made it say, you know what, you can make this 2 or 3. I mean, I just approved some today that stack 2 to 3 different of our funding sources into one company. They only applied for one, but we saw the ability to provide 2 other sets of resources to them, mm-hmm. and then bring in some of our support resources to them as well. So yes, use the tool that gives you some sense, but don't let that don't assume that that's going to define your only way to get to Tedco.
Mm-hmm. And scaling is an issue too, though.
Well, scale is at the end of the day, that's the goal. I mean, well, mm-hmm. that's and scale. By the way, thank you for that question. Scale we do. I'm overly simplifying it. We do 2 basic types. We're starting to move into what we call social impact investing, and what that means, Marsha, is we will invest in those enterprises, primarily people of color, women, or people in geographies that don't get invested in, who may have a great idea, but that great idea isn't quite ready maybe for the traditional venture capital markets. And we will put some money in, and maybe over the next couple of years, they will scale to be a couple of $1 million of revenues, maybe $3, $4, $5 million of revenue, and maybe even pay us back, the investments that we put in it. But they'll never really become a super, $100 million company. But I will tell you, if they are, scaling, making money, paying great wages, doing a great thing in their community, we will celebrate that $5, $10 million company. We'll have the same celebration for that company as one that we get a 10x return out of. Because that impact that company will have, whether that's in East Baltimore or in Western Maryland, will have just as a great effect as the bio life sciences company that becomes a $1 billion traded company on Wall Street. The impact, people will think I'm crazy when I say that, but the impact is similar because of the outsized impact of a $5 million company in a smaller market has even the same as a $1 billion traded company sitting up on 270. And so we're excited about both of those types of opportunities.
And so I'm excited too. And you said something earlier about having these relationships with the HBCUs, right? And those HBCUs in the state of Maryland have a myriad of, mm-hmm. programming that are in the STEM environment, right? Mm-hmm. So from a leadership standpoint and looking at the organization and how do you get those young people who have a brilliant ideas, be it for a game or be it for something else, some other technology, how do we create that seed, plant that seed for those young people and incubate those concepts at the university level to then have a for-profit corporation come out of that programming with these students? Because they're coming up with all kinds of stuff now, right?
No,
they're seeing it. How do you package that for a college student and getting them ready for the growth and the spurts that they may or may not have even seen as an opportunity or for growth?
Yeah, so thank you for that. So each of those institutions has various structures in which which they identify, support, and mature and incubate their students there. So Bowie State has a beautiful new building, which we were part of the opening for there on their campus. Morgan State has has a couple of entrepreneurial centers. Coppin has some work that we're doing with them, particularly around manufacturing. UMS is starting up some efforts that, again, we've actually been involved with. So each of them have various entrepreneurial centers which cut across. They're both academic as well as service-based or support-based. And so they are, I would argue, to each of them are doing a great job. And I know we keep harping on HBCUs and they deserve to be elevated. But we do work with many other schools, particularly those in the system, the U.S. and the public schools in the U.S. system. Do a ton of work with Johns Hopkins. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't mention all the work that we're doing to work both on commercialization or tech transfer, as it's sometimes called with our research, as well as helping with entrepreneurship and innovation at our non-research institutions. So we very much see, but I think, Marsha, the next level for us is how we're thinking about how do we create a real culture of innovation entrepreneurship, so all the way down into our high school, so that even a high schooler coming out can think that they too can be an entrepreneur, they too can be an innovator, and how can we help them turn that idea, that napkin, that concept they have in their spiral notebook into the next great enterprise. So we're thinking all the way down at that level as well.
And so when we start looking at, and I don't know what we're doing here, how do we get them tuned in at an earlier stage, right? So if they didn't just wake up in college thinking that they wanted to do something that they've been thinking about building and creating their own business has been stewing with them for a while. They just didn't know what to do with all of that. And so how do you get into or look at, we've got Poly here, and several other schools, high schools, but how do we create an environment where the track it gets them to a place that they need to be for the growth that you're talking about, right? So I don't know if I'm making sense here.
No, you are. But I think Linda may have a different answer. I think part of my answer is going to be stay tuned. That exact question is part of the question that the state has asked us to start to begin to think about, and we're in the process of launching a much larger effort. But I think it is that's the official answer. I think for Troy, I think and I'm an engineer computer scientist by academic training.
From Dillard?
Not from Dillard, no. Dillard.
They don't have it. Go ahead.
But I know Kimbrough. Kimbrough's an old friend of mine. I know Dr. Kimbrough, who just retired from there. But I think we need to rethink the curriculum. I think we talk about reading, writing, and arithmetic, which obviously are fundamental. But I think the notion of critical thinking and innovation has to be baked into how we start to teach our children. Technology is a fundamental part of everything we do. And so we have to rethink the role that technology plays and how we teach and what we teach about technology. Because we have to, the simple truth of it is we have to produce more engineers and computer scientists. And again, by the way, they don't have to be degreed. I think this is the part of the fallacy that we have running around out here right now, is that you can be a great technologist and you do not have to have a degree. And there's a whole things around badging and certifications and credentials, which I won't bore your audience with, but the whole point is there can be a career path that allows you to have a great life or become an entrepreneur, and it doesn't always have to be through a four-year one.
Yeah, and I would like to add on to that I think we have to start very young, and we have to start creating entrepreneurs very young, because an entrepreneurial mindset is what every organization needs. It doesn't matter whether you start your own business or whether you're going to join one of the large companies or whether you're going to join government. If we can start creating individuals that have an entrepreneurial mindset and that will walk in and want to transform how they do business within their job, within wherever they are, I think that we then can move our country forward very differently. I think that we create, opportunities for individuals no matter where they are, but we have to infuse that. We have to support that. We have to say that we want to create a culture that is entrepreneurial and really mean it, right? And so and out of that, you're going to get some really great things in various places. And so I think until we get to that point, it's almost like we're having the same conversation. And it's not almost, I mean, we're having the same conversation about cyber, right? We want cyber to be baked into individuals very young. Well, I would like to see entrepreneurship baked into everyone at a very, very young age. If you want to go out and sell cookies on your, on the street, or if you want to sell lemonade, well, let's talk about what that means. Support that entrepreneurial spirit, right? I mean, really think about it. And I think that we have to infuse that, and we're just not doing it.
Yeah, if I could follow on to that, we didn't plan as I promised. I know a ton of entrepreneurs who never started their companies. And what that means is, what Linda's point she's making is that we spend a lot of time, we use the word entrepreneurs, we tend to want to say, we're talking about the founders. When those founders start a company, guess what they're doing? Particularly after we put a little money in, they're hiring employee number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, pick a number. And I know a ton of people who've been employee number 3, 4, 5 at a bunch of companies. Because what happens, Marsha, is they do what's called an exit. So the company gets sold or gets bought or whatever, and they get a little money in their pocket. And what do? They go to the next thing. And what happens, you create a little mafia of folks who have been around and moved from company to company. But what if, Marsha, we can introduce somebody from Bowie, or somebody from Coppin, or somebody from Frostburg into that little mafia? Well, what do? When they start and they go and go do their next thing, they're going to go get some of their other friends from the Coppins, from the Bowies, from UMS. And all of a sudden, this little network that used to just have a smaller group of people in it floating around from company to company now has a better representation of what the state of Maryland's about. That's fun. If nothing else, whenever the board asks me to leave Tedco, if nothing else, we get that accomplished, that will be the greatest thing we could ever do.
And when you sit down and you talk about putting this leadership program together, it doesn't have to start with grown folks.
No.
See, start that with these high school students and getting them in preparedness, right? To literally be able to deploy them in an environment that those who are already with their mind focused on that and they see beyond the street they live on, that's the person that wants to be where we want them. And you take those programs and you create a leadership program while they're in high school. I'd started in their freshman year.
Yep.
And have them focus, because and if we don't get these education, we just had a gentleman on here a few minutes ago. Maybe you all should have a conversation. If we don't have the basics, if a child is not doing what they need to do in the basics for math and science in elementary and middle school, he's not going to be ready, or she's not going to be ready come high school, because they're still dealing with the foolishness of COVID and whatever the heck that is. So from that standpoint, that needs to be a priority for this nation, not to mention for the state of Maryland. And I applaud what you're doing. And I see these people already there. I see them there. And that's all they want. They just want the opportunity. The song said, just open up the door. I can get it myself. Quit playing with me.
Amen.
And that's what we're doing. We're playing with people's lives in this country.
Amen.
Anyway, that's a whole nother. I ain't going to preach tonight. We'll do that another night. Talk about Dillard or something.
I got you on that one, girl.
Man, I told you I was only there 5 minutes. But thank you both so much for coming. We really, really appreciate your time. Tedco's been doing it for a while, and So excited that you both are there. So we're going to talk. We're going to have to set up a call or something so we can catch up. And I got
Yeah.
some ideas germinating here. You stirred the pot. You stirred the pot.
Glad to
Stirred
have,
the
you
pot.
can be an entrepreneur at any age. You can be an entrepreneur at any age. I tell you, you
Oh,
can be an entrepreneur
child,
at
you know,
any age. You can be an entrepreneur.
I'm ready to go. So yeah, we're all right. Thank you so much, Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Linda Singh is wonderful, and let me tell you, Troy Lamel Stovall.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you very much. Tedco is really here, and it's on a new trajectory. So I'm excited about it. Thank you both so much.
Thank you. Good.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you. Whew. That was, oh my goodness, I'm so excited about that. Tedco's been doing some wonderful things for a long time. And for me, it's powerful for us to be able to see folks that look like us and see what we're doing and how we're really changing things that are going on and that are necessary. So we're now going to go across the water a little bit. I'm so excited. I've been involved for the last couple of days and learning more about this. And Prince Adewa Adebayo, presidential nominee for Nigeria, declares his intentions. And he is running for the office of Nigerian president. He will run under a coalition of political parties as a member of the Third Force Coalition. He was born the 8th of January, 1972. He's a excuse me, Nigerian lawyer, and in 2016 founded Kaftan TV, National Consultative Front, NCF. He is currently running and he was born in Ondo City in January 1972. He attended St. Stephen's Primary School in Ondo from 1983 to 89 and St. Joe College in Ondo from 91 to 97. He attended Abafemi Alawalo University, where he earned a law degree, and he was admitted to the Nigerian bar in 2000 after graduating from the Nigerian Law School in Lagos and passing his bar exam. He later attended another law school in the United States of America, where he passed the New York City bar exams, and he is a member of the International Bar Associations and licensed to practice in Australia, Canada, United Kingdom, California, New York, and federal courts in the United States. He began his legal career as a litigation lawyer at Tunde Bayoami and Co. and Company in Lagos, Nigeria. After 2 years of legal practice, he founded his own law firm, Adewa Adebayo and Company House of Law in 2002. He participates in Nigerian politics as a member of the Third Force and is aspiring to contest the 2023 presidential election on the platform of the Third Force being put together by the NC Front. And his campaign is Hope Again. He sponsors nearly 2,000 young Nigerians and foreign tertiary institutions, in addition to numerous people he has financially empowered across the country. He's laser focused on challenges facing his country and his plans for Nigeria and other national and global issues. Let me welcome our president-elect one day, right? Would be Prince Adewa Adebayo. We've already made you president.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Welcome. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. How are you doing?
I am great.
Thanks
Nice.
for inviting me. Thank you.
Yes, I'm glad that you were able to take the time because you have had a very busy schedule for the last couple of days, right?
Yeah, certainly. I've been busy in Washington, D.C., making consultation.
You've had a lot. Now,
I'm
you are an
talking to different
entrepreneur.
groups.
You're a business owner, and you said, I'm done. I'm going to start I'm going to not only run my business, but I want to take this opportunity. This is the time for me to be the president of this nation. What happened to make you make such a major decision that's transformative?
Well, basically, it's because To do otherwise would be unpatriotic because you go into the profession, you go into business to make things essentially good for you and your family. And in the end, some of the good will be for the country. But I don't have any personal problems anymore. My family doesn't have any need anymore. It is the people of Nigeria who need help. It is the country that needs leadership. So to continue to do business or practice law to make more money for yourself or more name for yourself at a time when leadership crisis is in my country will not be patriotic.
So, as you look at this and you see, can you think of or look at, I'm sure you've thought of already, what are 5 things that are a priority for you
Number
and
one,
your administration?
you have to get security in place. You have to get rid of the terrorists and the bandits that make life a hell for Nigerians. You must have seen the news, kids being kidnapped from schools, travelers being mugged, killed, um, taken for ransom, priests and parishioners in their churches being gunned down, and all these kind of atrocities need to come to an end. There's no need for any government to answer to the name government if you cannot secure the people. That's number one.
Mhm.
Number two is you have to get rid of poverty. Poverty is a global problem, but it should not be in a rich country. Nigeria is a rich country. And the poverty in Nigeria is ungodly, it's unnatural, it's artificial. The government over time has made the people poor. There is no reason for any Nigerian to be poor. 30 years ago, Chief M.K. Abiola, who was the candidate of my party, Social Democratic Party, ran on the mantra of farewell to poverty. And it was believed that within 4 years, he was going to get rid of poverty for good. But the election was annulled by the military, even though he won free and fair. And 30 years on, poverty is worse. On top of poverty, it's also insecurity. That's why, even though Abiola said farewell to poverty 30 years ago, I'm having to say farewell to poverty and insecurity in 2023. And that's something that needs to end. There should be no president coming after me who has to deal with the issue of poverty. They can have other developmental issues and other goals for the country, but it shouldn't be that people are in abject, extreme poverty in one of the richest countries in the world, Nigeria. That is something I need to say is my lifetime achievement. I get rid of that. Concomitant to that is corruption. And corruption actually should be mentioned first, but because corruption is the root cause of insecurity and poverty. And corruption in Nigeria is not corruption by the side. The corruption is major. Corruption is almost the purpose of organizing the government as it is now. So when many countries are talking about corruption, don't have a moral equivalence. The corruption in Nigeria is different. It's organized corruption where the entire government is set around the notion of robbing the people of their inheritance. So we need to deal with that issue of corruption. The fourth issue we need to deal with, freedom. People should be free.
What do you mean free?
People should be free from fear, from want, from discrimination. People should be free from having to cower when they go to pray, either in the churches or in the mosque. People should not have a feeling that their identity is under attack. People should have a sense of normalcy, that they should be able to raise their children in communities where they feel free. And that is important. That used to be there before, but now it's being eroded. And that freedom needs to be emphasized and guaranteed by the government. And that is important. And lastly, one has to deal with the issue of building infrastructure, because Nigerians' wealth is famously in oil, gas, and agricultural resources and all of that. But the real resources of Nigeria are in the people. You will see that Nigeria has 75% of the black doctors in America.
Yeah.
We have the highest graduate population among immigrants. But there's more at home. For every doctor that you see in America, there are 1,000 more back home. So you need infrastructure. You need to be able to retain them. You need, I'm not saying Nigerians should not travel abroad to live, to work, for a better life, but it shouldn't be that they left because there's no electricity. They left because there's no safety. They left because there is nothing to work with, no roads, no safety. I need to provide that at home. When all of that is available, the Nigerians who are leaving will leave voluntarily. They won't be chased out of their country by circumstances. They will be leaving to contribute to the world in a proper and legal immigration based on the talents that they have to offer the world. And today, as I'm talking to you today, uh, there is even the advanced delegation. The president of Nigeria was going to his hometown in Katsina, and the advanced party that was supposed to prepare for the security of the president was attacked by bandits. If the government cannot secure the presidential motorcade, then why is it called a government? So those are the things I want to deal with because there is this problem of piling around trying to explain away terrorists and terrorism and banditry. Can say it's caused by poverty, but I think that any organized group that specializes in terrorizing the people, taking their life, gunning people down, they need to know that the government has the ability to answer them with a bullet in the head so that the country can be safe for law-abiding citizens. In Nigeria, it is the people of Nigeria who are telling the government about law and order, about rule of law, whereas constitutionally and ideally, it is the government that ought to be telling the people about law and order and the rule of law. And I want to
So
take
what's this shadow government that you talk about? What is that?
Well, it was at a time when we discovered that was about 6 months ago, when we discovered that election will be next year. But there are many things going wrong in the country. And if things are going wrong in the country, we who want to come to power later should form ourselves into a kind of mock government, a shadow government, because to give critical opposition to the government, to give them suggestions on what they can do. The economy is running down, the currency is melting away, jobs are disappearing. You're having upper double digit, up to 42% if you take the underemployed. That's a large number. And you are having so many of these problems that it looks like the government is not there. And if you say, well, let me take advantage of the unpopularity of the government and their non-performance, and when I come into government next year, I'll make things right. Many lives will be lost before you come to government, and things may get worse. There may be no country for you to govern if you don't start helping the government that is there now. So that was why we formed the shadow government, and we appointed our members to be in charge of different departments so that we can actually match what the government is saying and then give them ideas. I was in charge of poverty alleviation, eradication, and the economy to ensure that we give them ideas. Because what Nigeria is not short of are good ideas. But we'll be electing governments without ears. So we have to have a way to change that.
So in looking at all of the problems that are there, I mean, and they're multi-layered, right? They're multi-layered. And so one, what does the military look like and how are they poised to assist in calming all this down and creating a more peaceful, regimented environment?
The military professionally is ready. But under our constitution, the military is under a civilian leadership. Yes, because the commander-in-chief has to be an elected person, the president. And every military operation, every military appointment, deployment, any activity of the military is subject to civilian control. That's the law. That's the constitution of Nigeria. Now, that's where the weakness comes from. When you have a distracted, unfocused commander-in-chief, surrounded by advisors who are deceiving him and making money out of the crisis of the people, there's a lot of blood money being made from this terrorism, where government officials get richer and some elements of the top brass of the military are collaborating with these civilians to deny their own troops effective strength, effective armament, effective payment, welfare, and all of that. So when you see these soldiers and their families, they don't have any much support. So that's why the military, even though it has highly patriotic and determined officers and men, are being asked to do the impossible. And that is why they need a leadership as commander-in-chief, someone who understands the plight of the military, gives them strength, does not divert resources meant for armament, meant for platforms, meant for welfare, away from the military, and fritter the money away. So this is what they need. Once they have that, you will recall that when there was crisis in Liberia and in Sierra Leone, it was Nigeria that led the West African monitoring group called ECOMOG, and Nigeria was able to lead in restoration of peace in Liberia and in Sierra Leone. And when we had Black Hawk Down in Somalia and the US military pulled out, Nigeria was part of the mission, the contingent that went to restore peace in Somalia at that time. If you go to Nigeria, you'll still see a whole military barracks named Mogadishu Barracks. So Nigeria has that ability. But under a very unpatriotic or serious leadership, there isn't anything the military can do because they are trained to obey the last order. And they are being misled, and that's where the problem lies. And I need to correct that when I become commander-in-chief.
But this is you're really starting from scratch, right? Or from visions from yesteryear, years ago, and being able to pull this together to develop a new strategy for the country. How do you begin? This is a huge task. It's not just one little element. It is multi-layered. How do you develop that strategic plan, and what type of alliances have you brought together to aid in doing that, in reaching those goals and objectives?
Basically, the good thing about Nigeria is that even if you are starting from scratch, you have enough useful scrap metal to use, because Nigeria is full of talents. If I were to recruit 20,000 doctors, I wouldn't go outside Nigeria to get 20,000 doctors. If I wanted to recruit 50,000 military personnel, I would not need to leave Nigeria to do that. If I want to mobilize resources, I will not need to leave Nigeria to do that, because the country is wealthy and it has human capital. What has happened in Nigeria is that those with talent, those with commitment, those with professionalism have been kept out. You would see that Nigeria helped a lot in restoring peace in the Sudan. And the military officers who made that possible are still available in the country. No one is consulting them. So the same thing with our medical situation, with our economy. Nigeria has the highest number of economists you can get in the third world. So there is no shortage of what to use. It's just to ensure that you do a politics that is not about money, donors, and big bags. That's about people who want to contribute to the country. And if I do that, within 6 months, you will start to see the ship turn around. It's like a ship that is flailing, that's about to hit the iceberg, but all the sailors you need are on board. It's not like you have to call Mayday, Mayday. Every other person you need to help you come to the bridge and right the ship are actually on board, just that they are not being called to do so. My job as the new captain is to get all the sailors on board, get all the navigators on board, get all the engine mechanics, everybody on board. Nigeria will be set aright in a matter of a few months. We just need the head to be in the right place.
So you've been touring the United States for the last couple of days and weeks, right?
Yeah.
And meeting a lot of folks in are there alliances being built or people supporting what you're saying? What's your feedback thus far? Because you've been in very large or audiences these last couple of days. What would you say the pulse is of the United States and the leadership that you've been meeting with?
Well, first, it's giving me assurance that if there was any doubt on the mind of anyone that the United States is committed to democracy, is committed to the peace, progress, and prosperity of its ally, of which Nigeria is a major one in Africa, that doubt has been removed. We've been well received, we've been listened to, and we've learned a lot about how the US system works and how people from outside looking at it can assume that the United States government and the people and the policymakers are not that committed. But I've seen that there's commitment on the part of the United States government, and I've understood better how to communicate issues, how to clarify issues. So we'll be well received on both sides of the aisle. So there has been a bipartisan uh, uh, listening tour, as it were, where we have been able to understand and interrogate some of our misunderstanding. Have been able to see, for example, people who have operated in Nigeria and had some questions as to what their perspective were. And when I understood them, I realized that they had the right perspective. It's just that we were not communicating. And I've also managed to emphasize to them that Nigeria, under my presidency, will continue to be a staunch ally of America. I will continue to look up to America in the world to be able to travel a journey which America is traveling, which is a journey towards democracy. America has had a head start above Nigeria and has come into some storms along the way, has seen so many bombs along the way, and we are now seeing our own instead of being deflected. So we see the America as a shining light ahead of us, the kind of if you have a ship that's ahead of you or a lighthouse. So whatever mistakes America has made, we try to minimize our making such mistakes. And where America has had giant strides, we try to emulate that and to communicate to the Americans that the people of Nigeria love freedom, love democracy, and they want to be able to be responsible for their own affairs. And that as I said to many in the leadership, that many of the things that America and the American taxpayers are doing for us in Nigeria and in Africa, for which we are very grateful. But actually, if you can help us to stop corruption, if you can help us to instill rule of law, if you can help us to have clean and credible elections, we can actually take some of the burden off you. Because if our monies are not being stolen and ferreted away to different parts of the world, the US taxpayers will not have to come and help us with basic things. You will trade with us, you will support us, but you will see that we are using our own resources first in a very accountable, open, and transparent way. And I made it clear that I am the only presidential candidate who has publicly offered to declare my entire asset so that everyone can see. And the Social and Economic Rights Project in Nigeria, a non-partisan pressure group, has told other aspirants or other candidates to emulate me so that we can have for the first time a very clean political scene and people can understand what we've done in our lives, what our resources are, so that we don't just end up becoming magic billionaires when we're in government. People will say, but we knew where you were a few months ago. So that's what we're trying to do. If we don't do this, there will be many crises in Africa for which America will be accused of not interfering or intervening. And if America does intervene too soon, will be criticized for not minding its business. So either way, America will be judged either for being too slow or for being too fast. So the way to deflect and prevent some of these misunderstandings is to take the African leadership to account Before you can ask for help, how are you managing the God-given resources of your country? How are you accountable for the use of the public money? So if you can do that, America will have a staunch ally in Nigeria. Otherwise, what you will have is a country that is bankrupt and is being exploited by other people who are granting dodgy loans to the country, and the country will now be under pressure. And when a leadership is under pressure, unable to meet the needs of its people, and you have a young rising population, what you have is unrest, leading to bloodshed on many occasions, leading to forced migrations out of the country, so that young people leave their country before they are prepared enough to offer anything to the world. They just live almost like refugees. That is not what immigration should be internationally. Immigration should be that people are comfortable at home, and the minority who have aspirations to see the world or who have something to learn or give to the world may now live under a legal regime. I want a Nigeria where the American people don't have to worry that their taxpayers' money will be sent to us to solve basic problems of housing, water, education, and basic welfare. We have enough resources. Nigeria is a blessed, rich country endowed with every resource. That has been my message to the Washington elite and to the people in the diaspora. And I've been to the African Union to speak to African ambassadors, same thing with the ECOWAS. I've spoken to a broad spectrum of people who can influence policy to see that the greatest gift America can give to Nigeria is to assist Nigeria, support Nigeria to have free, fair, and credible election, leading to an accountable, open, responsible government that is limited in its use of power, but facilitates progress for the people.
So here's a question for you. So does this mean that you have already started the process with eliciting the United States military for this to be able to make that type of a transition? I mean, is it the regular police? Who's going to come in and make that's an extreme change. We're removing all of the criminals that are keeping all of the madness that's going on over there now, right? How do you remove that element from the country? What is the process by which needs to be done? Is it internal? Is it going to require the United Nations to participate in this? Are there new laws that need to be put into place, or are there new relationships based on this new president coming into position? What are the resources in terms of positioning from other nations to help you get there if we're looking at a country that has, as you said, so much corruption? How do you change that, and what are those steps necessary to make that happen?
Well, first thing you do is majority of the corruption is within the government. And when I'm elected, I'll be the head of the government. And if the head of the government is not corrupt, no corrupt person can stay within the government. And once you remove corruption, every other institution is going to work. There is nothing much that United Nations can do for Nigeria. United Nations can never raise a sufficient army. The entire budget of the United Nations cannot help Nigeria. Nigeria is a very wealthy country with 210 million people. So how many soldiers are you going to take to go and help 210 million people? Nigeria is not Sudan. Nigeria is not Lebanon. Nigeria is a very big country. So what we need to do is to be internal. What the American government can do for us is to understand our stance against terrorism, our stance against banditry and criminality, and to understand that we are prosecuting the war against terrorists under a legal regime, the the Terrorism Prevention Act of 2011. And under the framework of that law, which is well known to people in the State Department, we have a legal regime that protects human rights, but at the same time allows the government to nip terrorism in the bud, to be able to get rid of terrorists in the country. The US government works with us. There are instances in which we will need some platforms, but we have money to pay for it. So we're not like asking you to donate them to us. It's like we're asking you to support us so that we can get rid of terrorism, because a country that is under terrorist attack is not capable of doing any other thing. People will not be able to move around. You will not be able to do agriculture. You will not be able to do industry and things like that. So what you want to do, and you become a risk to your neighbor, because once the terrorist takes over your territory, they tend to run around your neighborhood, and it leads to regional imbalance. And sometimes a government may collapse if it doesn't handle terrorism correctly. So what the US can do for us is not to come to the country. America has enough fish to fry all over the world. What they can do is to give us the capacity in terms of uh, platforms. For example, I believe that the military is in need of uh, armed drones and attack helicopters, all of which we have money to pay for. So if you have these platforms and you under a well-supervised humanitarian observation to see that these things are not being used for non-legal purposes, this will help a lot in clearing off the terrorists from the bushes, and then leave the country with developmental issues to deal with. And with a government under me as president that is completely free of corruption, zero corruption, you will see that the resources of the people will go to the people, and Nigeria will become a model and a partner, an ally to the United States and to the United Nations and all other well-meaning international community, so that we can get rid of the terrorism. Because once Nigeria does that, then we can be useful for the international community in dealing with the same thing in Central Africa and other parts of West Africa, where the terrorists have taken over places like Mali, that giving them problems in Burkina Faso, in Niger, even as far up as Libya. So you want to be able to have an ally like Nigeria that allows you to, if America gives us kinetic and non-kinetic um, uh, apparatus to use, and all other platforms that we can use, that the military knows that have been very effective in dealing with terrorism, Nigeria will be a very safe place, and America's interest will be protected.
So in looking at your young people there, what are you going to do about the youth? Because sometimes not only are they looking for guidance, but they're also being impacted by the terrorism that's going on in the country. How are you going to impact change with them?
The first thing to do is to see that kids of school age are able to go to school, because millions of kids in Nigeria are out of school because terrorists have taken over their schools. And many who stubbornly, as Nigerians are, will stubbornly go to school. If you go to a school, you kill a few people, next day the kids are still going to show up. So these kids are now being kidnapped. It shouldn't take military courage for a preschooler to go to school. But that's what it takes. So we need to deal with that. Then we need to deal with the issue of having a counter narrative in the communities where they are raising some of these young people to follow terrorism or bandits. We need to give them something positive to do. Thirdly, we need to give education across the board, even in places where the terrorists are not operating. There have been some industrial issues, some other labor issues that have made government unable to open universities. So most undergraduates in Nigeria right now are not in school. So we need to create a regime that doesn't allow that to happen at all, where the school calendars are kept, everybody's in school. Then we need to create jobs. We need to create jobs for young people, because education is good, but education into unemployment is discomforting. So we need to create employment. And these are the 5 areas where I'm creating employment. I'm creating employment through agriculture. I'm creating employment through green technology. I'm creating employment through entertainment. And I'm creating employment through infrastructure. and I'm taking employment through further investment in healthcare and social services. Once you do that, you'll be able to get millions of jobs. In fact, I've been talking to the National Black Chamber of Commerce in America, and we have some
Mhm.
preliminary deal where we look at a framework by which we can create 30 million jobs from foreign direct investment into the country. So Nigeria has enormous manpower, and with this manpower, once I start to create jobs, lifetime jobs, jobs that last 30 to 35 years, then you have a tax base. Then you have a tax base from which the government can raise legitimate non-oil revenue. You also have a market for housing, for other family needs that will create new industries from which other employment to be given. And my calculation is that under my administration in 4 years, if we create this number of jobs, then it will have an uplift in places like Ghana, Sierra Leone, and neighboring countries, because that was how it was when I was growing up in Nigeria. When unemployment was single digit in Nigeria, our neighbors came into our country and they too got employed and sent money home. And there was some prosperity and peace in West Africa, not the crisis that we have now. These crises
Mhm.
are traceable to too many idle hands having nothing to do. And the government
Mhm.
is the devil that has kept them idle, because the resources of the country, as I'm talking to you now, from the moment I enter your studio up to this time, billions of dollars have been stolen.
Did you
80%,
say billions?
billions, because
How what? How do you steal billions plural? What do you mean?
this is how you do it. This is how they do it over there. One, Nigeria makes a lot of money from gas and crude oil. And 80% of the oil is stolen, straight away stolen.
Did
Stolen
you, did
as
you
in stolen in
stolen?
broad daylight. Stolen.
Stolen.
Yes.
Those big tank, they're talking about big tanker. How you still
Because if you have the government, you can steal anything. If you
uh-huh.
have the government cooperating with you, you can steal whole buildings. So that is what is happening. It's not, it's something that you can verify anywhere. I've been talking about it for months, and the government came out to say, well, it's not 80%, it's 75%. So, you know, so we are now checking around the edges. But if you look at it, that's enormous amount of money that can lift 50 million people out of poverty without foreign donor, without foreign contribution.
Did you say 50 million people out of
Poverty.
poverty?
The amount of money stolen out of Nigeria this year is enough to lift the entire West Africa out of poverty. This money is being stolen in broad daylight. There's no country in the world, not even China, not the United States, not Great Britain, no country can survive this amount of theft, broad daylight theft. In a period of 1 month, the chief accountant of the government, the accountant general of the federation, two have had to be fired for massive corruption worth billions. Why I'm raising this issue is not to embarrass people outside Nigeria and not to embarrass my country, but when it comes to, you have country pride, but you cannot have country pride on corruption. When people are stealing people blind, the most patriotic thing is to cry to the world. And the American taxpayers have a great influence on the American government. So you don't want your government sending your hard-earned money to a government that is stealing his own people blind. That's double stealing. So you want to make sure that before any country gives any cooperation, assistance, or any form of support to Nigeria, they ask the first question: give us stewardship of the money of your own people.
Mm.
So it's not like big men in Nigeria are going to come to Washington, D.C., have houses by the Potomac and all of that, just because they were governors, just because they serve as ministers, just because they serve as vice president. A Nigerian vice president had to be interrogated by the FBI here for taking an enormous amount of Nigerian money and bringing it to the United States. These are facts. So this a congressman has had to go to jail because he was receiving money from Nigerian politicians. So we need to address those things. Once we address them, you will have a people whose government are not just allied to the Americans, but the people of Nigerians of Nigeria love America. America is like heaven to most Nigerians. And we look up to America for the ideal, for the music, for the soft power of America, for the inspirational stories that come out of America. So Barack Obama is as much a president of the United States as it is mentally the president of the young people of Nigeria. And you want such a country to have a positive influence on your country. And you want politicians who come out of Nigeria to embrace the best angels of America, to try to aspire. Just like the ordinary people of Nigeria are aspiring to the ideal of the American dream, the Nigerian politicians should also aspire to the best ideals of Abraham Lincoln and all these other American leaders who have worked, lived, and taken their entire life to serve the people who elected them. You should not have elected officials becoming bandits and thieves and robbing the people blind. Anyone you see in Nigeria who is poor because of the government. Everything about that country is a taste of paradise. The way God created Nigeria, that God does not envisage that a single Nigerian will go hungry for 1 hour. If you're walking across Nigeria, fruit will fall on your head. If you eat any fruit, you throw it on the ground, it's going to grow on its own. Anywhere you dig a few feet, try to make a building for yourself, you'll find some gold, diamond, something. There's always something in Nigeria that reminds you that this is a safe deposit box that God made for the people of Nigeria. But they are being robbed by highway robbers in government.
You know, it's really fascinating and it's really painful listening, right? And you have all these brilliant minds, Nigerians that I know that have come to America and who have painfully left their homeland to come here with the idea we have our own problems here in the United States. And I don't want to sit here and say it's just Nigeria, because the United States is full of thieves in leadership throughout this nation. And that's a whole nother conversation that we're not going to have tonight. But how do we now create a coalition to assist you that's not only from the United States, but from the world, to create this coalition to deploy whatever's necessary and come up with those strategic plans to impact the economic development, what's going on with the crime, how you're going to deal with building homes and creating the schools? How do you create that infrastructure with where you are now? What can other nations do to help you?
The first thing to do is to ensure that we have free, fair, and credible elections. Because when the people determine the government will be responsible to the people. Up until now, we've not been having clean elections. And we've been fighting, even before I declare my candidature, I spent the last 2 years trying to make sure that the environment is ripe for free, fair, and credible elections. There have been some improvement in our electoral laws and the guidelines and the processes. So we need international partners across the world to focus on electioneering in Nigeria, and to ensure that in any conversation with Nigerian officials, in any engagement with the authorities, it is made clear and unambiguous that the world will not take anything less than a free, fair election. An election is free, fair when every voter who is entitled to vote is allowed to vote, when the people who are in security are fair and they are non-partisan, where you ensure that criminal money, is not allowed to enter into the government, that people are not paying voters cash to buy votes. Once you have credible election, and any government that is elected by that will be responsible, because they will know that they've come there by the free will of the people, based on a platform freely canvassed to the people and purchased and bought by the people. Next to that is that you have a good leadership That leadership is going to set a new tone of what the country needs. And the international partners will now know where there's room for support. For example, I need to create in the first half of my government 30 million jobs. That will be one of the largest job creation program in the world. It will mean that international companies that come to Nigeria will not just come with their bag and suitcases, hoping to cut away billions of dollars without creating any job. They will come and realize that there's a job component in every of interaction or business you do in Nigeria. There is technology transfer component. There is a foreign direct investment component. People in the main so far have been coming to Nigeria with just a piece of paper and a suitcase just to carry away money on behalf of those who are in government. So very few genuine business people have had the attitude of coming to Nigeria because those are appalled by the corruption. It is those who see the corruption as an asset that you see jumping all over the place. That will come to an end. Then I will provide security because without corruption, you will see that the resources that need to go to the military and the police will go there. If you know that the pay of the average policeman cannot feed the monthly pay of an average policeman in Nigeria cannot feed the policeman for 3 days. So, and there are usually 30 days in a month. So for 3 days, the salary is over. So there are 27 days that if the policeman has to feed himself, he has to be a criminal to feed himself. So you need to address that to see that those who are in law enforcement are well paid, are well motivated, and there is money for that within the country. Now, when you do that, when you have rule of law, when you have safety on the road, then you will see that economic activities will pick up. Agriculture will pick up. With agriculture, you can get 40 million Nigerians fully engaged. And if you have the schools running, hire more teachers, keep hospitals open, hire more doctors, nurses, pharmacists, internists, and all sorts of medical personnel, you will see that jobs will be created, families will be stabilized. And when I do housing, because in my intention is to build 1 million house in every state, and there are 36 states in the country. And that will give first-time home ownership to young people who are now having to use sometimes 300% of their official pay just to lease a property for a year. So there's a lot of financial magic going on in the country. You will find people who earn a certain amount as their total official pay, but the rent they pay is 3 times that amount. So you start to ask yourself, where is the rest of the ghost money coming from? So we need to normalize the life of the people. And once we do that, you will see that the international community will have genuine ways for intervention. Jobs will be created, collaborations will be maintained, and all sorts of things. But I am not looking for donors. I'm looking for partners because Nigeria, we're a proud people. We can take care of ourselves. We just need the government to get out of our way. And when I'm in government, I will get out of the way of the people. I will just be a tailwind behind every Nigerian who's trying to make a living and make a contribution to the country.
So you met with some people from Schumer's office and representatives out of Biden's office, and I'm sure you displayed and gave some of this information that we're having here today. What were 3 takeaways that you had with those meetings with some of the American U.S. officials?
The first takeaway is that American people are good people. They care genuinely. People listen to the issues as if they were their issues. They will not just listen out of diplomacy, they listen out of genuine concern. And it shows to me that what has been famously described about American people is still true today. Despite how the world is going, Americans still genuinely care. Number one. Number two, that American governmental system has processes. And even the people we met, it didn't mean that they had the full authority or they were acting for their principles. They were just interacting with us in the limited area of their remit, which means that you need further engagement when you want to get to the core of American policy think tank or American policy space. You need more of this engagement. It's not just 1 week flight into Washington and you assume that you've solved the problem.
Oh, we're back. We're back. I don't know if you. Well, this has really been very interesting. And, you think that you can read the newspapers and you really think that you have a better understanding of what's going on or some sort of understanding of what's going on in other nations, but we don't really know. And you have to be there. And we can't really make decisions without intel. And in looking at what one of the people that I called to talk to about this having an interview, they were very uncomfortable with the idea that they wanted to do an interview with someone from Nigeria. And because they have had so much exposure to negative press, negative information about the country. And so when we look at all of the problems that have been going on over there, we have to think about how does America really work and how do we really with foreign governments, but also how do we create allies? And she was very upset about all of the problems and the corruption that he just spoke about a few moments ago, that people were living in this environment and it's not healthy. So how do we deal with that? And what is it that needs to be done in terms of the United States being supportive? I guess, first of all, you have to have somebody in place that can navigate all of the problems that are going on, and they're multi-levels. What is it that we can do individually in our own cities? And it makes me think about what's going on in the United States in our own cities and the problems that we have and the expectations that we have from government, and that we all aren't always getting what we want and or expect from the leaders in our nation, which brings me to, we have an election coming up that is very important in the next week or so for us to get out and make certain that we vote. And voting is really important and necessary for us to be certain that the leadership of our own countries are ready to help and help and empower our citizens. Too often we see that there are far too many of us lacking. There are far too many of us that don't have the housing. There are far too many of us that are not properly being educated. There are far too many of us who do not have the health care. And so while we're looking at other nations and what they're doing, we need to also look at the United States of America and what we should be doing to better our communities, to better our schools, to better our institutions, to make certain that our children can go to college, to make certain that we have what we need in order for us to make certain that America is settled as well. I think we're back. Hello, thank you. I've been talking about America and the problems we
Yes.
have right here. So, we can sit down and talk about what you're going through and what you've seen and what the challenge that you're about to take on.
Yes.
And so I'm sitting here saying we we can't be disparaging about other countries when we have our own problems. But let's continue our discussion about the meeting that you had with some of the leadership here,
Yes.
and that's very important for us to hear.
So the third, I was talking about the first being that the American people care, and that's very important. The second being that the system requires continuous engagement because American decision making is layered. So the fact that you were talking to someone who is concerned with a narrow subject matter doesn't mean that the entire policy spectrum doesn't need to be further engaged. And lastly, that we need to take the initiative by ourselves, and that there's no country in the world that is coming to save anyone. You have to be the one to take initiative at home. And that's the takeaway I'm taking back to my fellow Nigerians, that back home, the countries that we're looking up to have their own issues, have their own processes, have their own challenges, but that there is enough goodwill in them to cooperate with us, to assist us, provided that we are highly invested in our own future. And that is the lesson, the third lesson I'm taking home.
Mm-hmm. What are three things that we should be, our takeaways that you want this audience to hear? And I know there are several people who are already asking for links to this interview, but give us several items that you would think are priorities that you would like for the United States and the people that you've been meeting and our leadership here to support your candidacy.
Well, basically, anyone who supports democracy supports my candidacy, because I want to be the president. But as long as whoever becomes the president is democratically and freely and credibly elected, that's 90% of the way for me, because I want to live in a country where the leaders are chosen by the people, not where special interests, stolen money, and all the other criminality determines the election. That's number one. Number two, I want a partnership with the American people, the American government. I want them to know that our struggles in Nigeria are part of the struggle of the global community. And I cannot but look at the courage of Americans. Imagine how many Americans died at Normandy just to free France, and how much investment in life, in resources, in time America has invested in Europe. So if 1% of that is committed to Africa, it will transform the entirety of the continent, and you will have free people to live in a free world who are going to be your natural allies. So that is very important. And if you study the predatory nature of many governments around the world, that they actually take advantage of weak governments and unstable states to put them in more debt and more problem. So you need to give these countries the necessary support to build institutions that will not make these countries susceptible to untoward influences. So if America can do that, it costs America nothing, because in any case there was crisis in the world, you will still have to go there and put out the fire. So if you invest in fire prevention, some of the investment America needs to make are moral investment of mere words, words said at the right time to the right people about the right direction that the country should take. And those who are waiting to lobby people on K Street to come and explain away their criminality, their abuses, the position taken by the American government will be clear, that we know what's going on in that country, and we don't need any dictator or any abusers or corrupt people hiring lobbyists to come and explain something in Washington. We know what's going on, and we are with the Nigerian people. Once you invest these good words, it will go a long way. What sounds like a whisper in Washington is a booming voice in Africa. And people who are here may forget that in all the cacophony of exchanges here People may forget that. But a single senator in the US Congress may not be able to pass a law. But a single senator speaking clearly and openly about how to prevent abuses, how to prevent corruption, how to secure the people of Nigeria will go a long way. Then imagine if the entirety of the Congress, even if they are not voting money, if they are having continuous resolution about, say, we are monitoring the situation in Nigeria and we are with Nigerian people and we support democracy, we support rule of law, I think that will help a lot. And American businesses, when they are coming to Nigeria, should come with the feeling that they are coming to be welcomed by Nigerian people, not to collaborate with those who are abusing the people, but actually a lot can be done. There's a lot of talent in my country. You need to come to Nigeria and see the beauty of the mind of the people. Every creative endeavor has talented people in Nigeria in surplusage. So if you are in the creative industry, you are in technology industry, you are in science and tech, whatever you are in, you have material, people, persons, talents waiting in Nigeria. You don't want to wait for them to cross the desert, cross all over the world, and come and be an immigration nuisance to you. You want to meet them where they are,
Right.
so that you can collaborate with them and they can add value to the world economy. And a peaceful world cannot be quantified. A peaceful world is more valuable than all the GDP that we're calculating. To have a peaceful world in which Africans as a whole are not a threat to the security and welfare of the American people, there is no price too high to pay for that. To ensure that you have people of various diversity in Africa, but not under so much pressure that they can be recruited to become an international threat to America or its ally or its interests anywhere in the world. Those are the things that I want American people. I know we have the kitchen table issue. Everybody has their concerns. The economy is challenging everyone. There's the pandemic. There are so many other issues we need to deal with in the community, but spare a thought for Nigeria, because it's a good thought to have such a great country as an ally of the United States.
And I think that what's really important here too is that it's time for a change, and the nation should not, and the people of Nigeria, the Nigerians should not be living through this type of madness. And we wish you all the best. In the election is in January.
February 25. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so, how can people follow your campaign?
They can go to our Facebook page. They can go to our Instagram page. They can go to our website, Adewole Adebayo for President. They can follow me on Twitter, press at Adebayo, and all of that. And they can give us ideas. They can give us observation. They can talk to other Nigerians that they know, because we are relying on the people. This is a presidential campaign run on the strength of the people, run by a non-career politician. This is my first public office that I'm seeking. I've been an attorney all my life. And if this works, it's going to inspire many young people all over Africa to look at their country and say, I too can change my own destiny. This is very important.
That is very important. And this presidential election is huge.
Certainly.
Prince Adewale Adebayo, thank you so much for your time. I know you've got more meetings tonight, and I appreciate you taking as much time as you did with us. And we know that this election is heartfelt and that you're committed to affecting change for your country. And we are pleased to be a part of this experience with you. Thank you
Thank you
so
very much
much
for having me. I appreciate your time and your thoughtful questions. And I say my regards to your audience. I hope that when the elections are conducted and we win, you will continue to be a partner of Nigerian people. We'll be grateful to you for all of that.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And safe travels, and we wish you a wonderful election. And we're here, so know that we will support you in whatever we can do to make certain that you get your voice heard.
Thank you, Marsha. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Prince Adewale We are just so excited about this movement. And it's, this is the first time I've ever interviewed a presidential candidate, and he's from Nigeria. And, too often we forget that there are people in other nations that need change. And it sometimes makes us also reflect on what change we need to make here, and that we want to be the change that we want to see. Thank you very much. We'll see you next Tuesday. I'm Marsha Jews and Katanya Lester, our producer, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much for joining us.